Right now, we're talking about the quadratic formula. The biggest theme here is knowing when to take hints that this is the formula you should be using. For instance, here, this is a regular quadratic situation, but when it's a little more difficult or complicated to factor, that's when you generally want to do the quadratic formula. Now here, we could use ABC factoring, but I do think the quadratic formula is even easier than that. So if we start with our negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. By the way, if you don't have that memorized, you need to get on that. That's really important. I would say it's essential for taking your SAT to have the quadratic formula memorized. This is your a, this is your b, and this is your c. So negative b is negative 5 plus and minus square root of b squared, 5 squared, minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, the biggest mistake students make when doing the quadratic formula in general is they don't realize that they need to get one number and one sign here. So in that green part, you've got two negatives, so it'll give you a positive. And you'll have 4 times 3, which is 12, times 2, which is 24. So altogether, we're going to have 25 plus 24, which is 49. So negative 5 plus and minus root 49 all over 6. Of course, root 49, the square root of 49 is 7. So negative 5 plus and minus 7 all over 6. And now we have our two scenarios. Negative 5 plus 7 over 6, well, that's 2 over 6. In other words, 1/3. And negative 5 minus 7 over 6, negative 12 over 6, which is negative 2. So we have negative 2 as one of the answers and positive 1/3, so we can't pick negative 1/3. So the answer here is A. Now going to our next question. This is a valuable one because it cuts to what we want you to know about quadratic formula questions, which is that the questions will often telegraph to you that you should be using the quadratic formula. On the last question, it was because it was something that would be difficult to factor. But here, it's because we're seeing radicals in the answer choices. Now, that's not to say that every time you see a radical in the answer choice, you should use the quadratic formula, but it is definitely something you should look out for. So here in our ABC quadratic, the a is the invisible number 1 in front of x squared. The b is the negative 8, and the c is the 2. So if we're going to use the quadratic formula, negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. By the way, notice how well that rolls off the tongue for the purpose of memorizing it. The quadratic formula definitely has a ring to it. So we're looking for negative b, and that's negative 8. So that's positive 8 plus and minus square root of b squared, negative 8 squared, which is 64, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2, all over 2a, which is 1. So under the radical, we have 64 minus 4 times 2, 64 minus 8, which is 56. So 8 plus and minus square root of 56 all over 2. Now, for quadratic formula questions, you need to be able to simplify a radical. So if we have the square root of 56, one of the two main ways to do this is to get the prime factors. So let's go ahead and prime factorize 56. 56 is really 2 times 28. 28 is really 2 times 14. 14 is really 2 times 7. So 56 is really 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. So square root of 56, that's the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. And a square root is basically asking the question, what number multiplied by itself twice gives me this number? So in other words, we're looking for pairs of 2 here. So if you see a pair of 2 under the radical, you can take it out and put 1 on the outside. That way, root 56 becomes 2 root 14, because we do have 2 times 7 still under the radical. So let's replace that. We have 8 plus and minus 2 root 14 all over 2. Now for simplifying the quadratic formula, if you have the same factor throughout, which we do here, then you can divide by that factor. The radical is kind of irrelevant to this in this situation. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 2 divided by 2 is the invisible number 1, and the other 2 divided by 2, also the invisible number 1. So this all can get replaced with 4 plus and minus root 14. So 4 plus root 14, which is this, and 4 minus root 14, which is that. Those are both answers to this, but the question's asking us for the larger of the two solutions. And that would be this one right here, where you're adding it, you're definitely going to have a larger number than subtracting the root 14. So the answer here is A. So now going to our next question. Here, once again, we know this might be the quadratic formula because of the radicals in the answer choices, so we'll give that a try. One other thing I might notice is that there's a common factor, and you should always be on the lookout for a common factor. You can divide this entire equation by 2. So let's do that. 2x squared plus 6x plus 1 equals 0. So now the a of our quadratic is 2, the b is 6, and the c is 1. So let's use the quadratic formula, negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so that'll be negative 6 plus and minus square root of 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, which is 1. And we don't need to write the 1. All over 2a. So under the radical, we have 36 minus 8, which is 28. So negative 6 plus and minus square root of 28 all over 4. And to simplify this radical, we can use the method that involves perfect squares. So 28, square root of 28, that's really the square root of 4 times 7. So while on another question, we got the prime factors all the way, we got 2 times 2 times 7, and wherever you see a 2, you circle it out and take it out as 1. The other method is to find perfect squares, because the square root of 4 is 2. So you can take it out as a 2, and you'll have 2 root 7. So right now we've got negative 6 plus and minus 2 root 7 all over 4. And now we can see that all three of these, this number, and this number, can all be divided by 2. So if we go ahead and do that for all three, we'll have negative 3 plus and minus root 7 all over 2. And don't forget, if you have a plus b over c, you can rewrite that as a over c plus b over c. So for us, the 3 plus or minus root 7 over 2, we can rewrite that as, well, the negative 3 plus or minus root 7 over 2, we can rewrite that as negative 3 over 2 plus and minus root 7 over 2, and that matches answer choice A here. And now going to our next question, just like in some of the other ones, because we see something in the format of the quadratic formula in each of the answer choices, the quadratic formula is a safe bet. Now, quadratics generally all have to be set equal to 0. It's a fundamental thing in quadratics. So we need to subtract the 3n over x squared minus m over 3x minus 3n equals 0. And now we have it in more of a quadratic kind of setup. But fractions should be avoided when possible. And one easy way to get rid of fractions here is to multiply both sides by 3. Because we've got a denominator of 3, so multiplying by 3 on both sides, which is totally allowed, is going to kind of reorder this so that it's more workable. So now we've got this equation, and we can plug it into the quadratic formula, negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So for us, our a is 3, our b is m, and our c is negative 9n. That's a little weird, but remember, a, b, and c are everything that is outside of the x's. So the 3, the negative m, and the negative 9n, the whole thing there. So negative b is positive m plus and minus the square root of negative m squared. So if you multiply a negative by itself, the negative sign will disappear. So we'll have just m squared minus 4ac, negative 9n, all over 2 times a, which is 3. So we've got m plus and minus square root of, and under the radical, we have negative 4 times 3, which is negative 12, times 9, which is positive 108. So we've got m squared plus 108n all over 2 times 3, which is 6. Now this can be written in a different manner because a plus b over c can be rewritten as a over c plus b over c. So for us, we can say we have m over 6 plus and minus the radical m squared plus 108n all over 6. And that's answer choice B in this situation. Now going to another question. Here, I think it's a little more obvious that this is a quadratic formula situation. And that's because those two green setups pretty much look like an imitation of the quadratic formula. So once again, make sure you have the quadratic formula memorized, negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And what are a, b, and c? Well, we can't really tell yet because it's not in a quadratic setup. We need to subtract the 45 over x squared plus 7x minus 45 equals 0. And now it's in an ABC format where the a is the 1 in front of the x squared, the b is the 7, and the c is the negative 45. So let's start plugging it into the formula. Negative b, negative 7, plus and minus square root of b squared, 7 squared, 49, minus 4 times a, which is the invisible number 1, who cares about that, times c, which is negative 45, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So right here, you've got 4 times 45, which is 180. So we're going to be doing 49 plus 180. And what's that on the calculator? 49 plus 180, and that's 229. So you've got negative 7 plus and minus root 229 all over 2. And now we have it in the format of r plus and minus square root of s over 2, where this is the r, negative 7, this is the s, 229, and you have a 2 on the bottom. So let's write that out. R is 7, and s is 229. So what is the answer to the question 3r minus 2s? 3 times 7 minus 2 times 229. Make that a little neater. That's 21 minus, and 2 times 229 is 458. So 21 minus 458, and we'll do that on a calculator. 21 minus 458 is negative 437, and believe it or not, that is our answer to this question. So now moving to our last question. Here, we're being given an equation, and we're saying the solutions are in these formats. Now, we're being given a second equation, and the solutions are in these formats. So all of this is just pointing to doing the quadratic equation twice, and then working it out from there. So once again, our memorization, negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So for the first one, the orange one, the a is the invisible number 1, the b is the negative 7 in front of the x, and the c is the negative 9. So let's move forward. Negative b is negative 7, positive 7. So positive 7 plus and minus square root of b squared, negative 7 squared, 49, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 9, all over 2 times 1. So simplifying onward, we have 49 plus 36. So when you're doing the quadratic, you want to get one number for all this, and negative 4 times negative 9 is positive 36. So what's 49 plus 36? It's 85. So 7 plus or minus root 85 all over 2. And doing it that way, we've got an 85 under the radical. So in the orange situation, we know that the Q the question was talking about is 85. Now looking at the next one, we've got the green one here where the a is the one in front of the x squared, the b is negative 15, and the c is the letter d. So plugging that into the quadratic, we have negative b positive 15 plus and minus b squared, negative 15 times negative 15, which is 225, minus 4 times a, which is 1. We don't need to multiply by 1. It's invisible. Times c, which is the letter d. All over 2 times a, which is 1 anyway. So now we have this in the format 15 plus and minus root q over 2 if the q in that situation is everything under the radical, 225 minus 4d. So now this is a really interesting setup. Both of these things are equal to q. Therefore, they're both equal to one another. So 85 equals 225 minus 4d. And we can start solving. Let's take away 225 from both sides. So we'll get 85 minus 225. 85 minus 225 is negative 140. Negative 140 is equal to negative 4d. Divided by negative 4 on both sides. So negative 140 divided by negative 4, it'll be a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So I'm just going to do on the calculator 140 divided by 4, and that's 35. And that is our answer to this question. Thanks so much for watching this video. Here's a reminder that in our new series of SAT math lessons, each lesson has a worksheet at the beginning. And when you click on that worksheet, you'll have the questions that are in the video, followed by an answer key, and you can grade yourself and then come back to the video for anything you need help with. Thanks so much, and have a great day.